Hello, it's Kim from Sixpenny Memories, and we are going to do block 4 of our Sixpenny Memories sew along. So what you're going to need this time, I'm going to show you, although I've done a little bit of a variation here, is for the centre, we're going to do two sizes, a 9-inch and a 12-inch. So for your centre, you are going to need, for the 9-inch block, a 3.5-inch square. For the four corners, you're going to need four 3.5-inch squares. And we're going to do the other block slightly differently. So what I need you to do is to get two fabrics that are of a similar value. So I've chosen red, and they are going to be 4.5-inch squares. And then I've chosen a cream, which is a 4.5-inch square, and a black, which is a 4.5-inch square. So I'll just go over that. For the 9-inch block, you're going to need a centre block, which is a 3.5-inch square. And for the four corners, four 3.5-inch squares. And you'll see as I'm going along where I'm using them. And for the quarter square block, I want two squares that are of similar value. I've picked two reds, and they are both 4.5 inches. And also I've picked a cream and a black, and they are also 4.5 inches. If you're doing the 12-inch block, for the centre square, it's going to be 4.5 inches. And for the corners, you're going to have 4.5-inch squares. And for the hourglass block, the quarter block, you're going to choose 5.5-inch squares. You're going to have two of the same value, which will be 5.5 inches square, and again two different ones which are 5.5-inch squares. So let's get started. The hardest bit about this block is going to be the hourglass block, so I'm just going to lower this down, and what I'm using actually is a charm square, because I'm going to make the 9-inch block. So here is a charm square here. So if you can see it, I'll just get this down here. And all I'm using is the Kai rotary cutter, the Prim Love rotary cutter, which I have here. I'm going to use a small rotating mat, which is the 8-inch rotating mat, which is just perfect. And I'm going to trim my square down initially with a 6.5-inch square ruler. I'm just getting the wire of my machine away. So all you'll do is you'll pop your square. So remember, you're going to have two of the same value, and then a light and a dark. So I've picked two reds, a cream and a black in my main ones. And to cut this square, you are literally going to cut it on the diagonal. So if you just pop your ruler, so your ruler is going to go from corner to corner. If you want to, you could use the board. If I just move that there. So you could use that 45-degree line that's on the board there, and pop that along that there like that. And do a cut. And this is brilliant, because this rotary cutter, because I don't have to expose the blade, it just does it for me. And then what you're going to do is you're going to rotate the mat. My mat's just waiting, it's ticked a little bit, but rotate the mat, and you're going to cut in the other direction. So it's from corner to corner again, and that will yield you 4 triangles. Okay, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's what you're going to do for your hourglass block. And what you're going to make is for each square you will need, if I show you on here, I've got the two red values, I've got the black one, and I've got a cream one. So I want you to have 4 triangles. There's going to be 4 of these blocks, so you're going to actually need 4 black, which is 1 square cut in half into quarters, 4 cream, which again is 1 square just cut into quarters, but you need 8 of the medium value. So that means you're going to have 2 squares cut on the diagonal 4 ways. So all we're going to do now is we are going to flip. I'm going to flip this black one onto here like that. And can you see this angle here is the right angle? And that is the angle I'm going to put into the machine. And I'm going to flip this red one onto here. So that's ready to go. If you want to put a pin in it, you can do, but we're sewing down this line here, and we're sewing down this line here. So I'm going to pop it over to the sewing machine. I'll just move that so you can see. Oops, I might have to move the whole tripod. So can you see that? Now, to chain piece is literally one, you put one piece in straight after the other. We're going to use a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And if you start at that right angle, it's always easier than starting at this point here. So we're just going to scoop down there, and then feed the next one in. And remember, feed the right angle in first. And you could, of course, do all of your blocks like this. I've just speeded mine up a little bit, so I'm just showing you how to do one for a miniature block. And so you have your 2 blocks and they're tied together by this little thread here. So I'll bring it back over to here, just bring it back to the, I just need to move the whole thing, don't I? And bring it down just a little bit. So can you see I've now got 2 there? So if I just grab my scissors and I'll just do a little snip there. Now it's entirely up to you how you press this, but I'm going to press mine at this point with the seams open. And the reason I'm doing this is I think it will give a better finish. It makes all of the pieces go together easier anyway. So we'll just open it up, set the seam first, and then open it up. And all you're going to do is you're going to open that seam up. So just pop your fingers in like that. Open the seam and just give it a press. So that's that. That's that one done. Helps if you turn the iron on. I'll come back to that one in a second. And what we'll do is we'll set this seam as well. And we'll open it up again. Okay. Pop your finger just in the centre. Like that. And then just press like that. And then we'll just press this one here, so that one's pressed there. So now what you've got is 2 halves of the block, and we're literally going to flip one onto the other, and we're going to match the seams here. So we'll flip this onto here, and at this point I like to get a pin. So can you see the seam is going together really nicely there? Grab yourself a pin. Pop your pin through the seam. It should come through the other side, which mine hasn't because I'm doing it in the air. And don't worry if the blocks aren't identical at this point. It's the middle points that you need to get sorted out because we are going to trim this block down. And we're just going to make sure I'll just pop a pin in this end here just to keep it straight. If you want to, you can pop a pin in there, but I'm actually just going to take that straight back to the sewing machine. So I'll take it back to the sewing machine, and this time we're going to sew down this long edge here. So pop that into the sewing machine. We are using a 1/4 inch seam allowance as normal. I've actually got a 1/4 inch foot on, so I don't have to think about mine, which is great. If you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, then you can just follow my usual tips, which is measure your seam allowance. And again, don't worry if your seam allowance isn't exactly spot on. As long as you are sewing all of the seams with the same seam allowance, you'll get a good result. So that's that one done. And I'm going to bring you back to here. I have to physically move this. I'm getting the hang of it. So now if I open this up, can you see you've got this block here? And what we're going to do again is we're going to set the seam. Really important that you set the seam. Then open it up. And I tend to start from the middle, but we're going to have that seam opened. So I'm just going to open that seam. Just use your finger, or you could use a stiletto to open the seam carefully. And then you are just going to press it so you've got a nice seam there. Okay, and you're pressing, not ironing. And there's your block, and you're going to do that 4 times. Now we're going to trim this block down, and this block's going to get trimmed down to measure 3.5 inches. So we're going to go back to the square, and we're going to go back to the rotary cutter, and I will find my rotating mat, which I've just buried under here, which is not on the rotator. I think I've got this one a little bit warped. Okay, so I'm going to pop that onto there. Now the important thing is that the centre here, half of 3.5 inches is 1 3/4. So what you're needing to find is the 1 3/4 inch mark, which is here on my ruler. So if you have a look along here, you've got your 1/4 inch, then your 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch and an inch. Then you've got your 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/2, 1 3/4. And if you come that down to there, you can see that's the mark. This is where the square ruler really comes into its own. And that 1 3/4 mark, where it intersects, so it's 1 3/4 this way, 1 3/4 there. Just get the right one on. you're going to have that on your centre point. So I'll just double check. It's always worth checking a few times here. So there's 1, 1.5, 1 3/4. I'm spot on there, and my 1 3/4 spot on there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to trim up this side here and trim. Oops, just because I'm sitting down and I don't normally sit down. In fact, I will stand up because it doesn't matter. You can't see my face anyway, and we'll just, oops, trim along there. Okay, get rid of those bits. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the board around. My board's definitely not working properly, but never mind, I've not moved the fabric. And now I'm going to find the 3.5 inch mark, which is the 3.5 inches is here, and the 3.5 inch line there. So you've got your line going horizontal and your line going up, and then you can do a double check and check that 1 3/4 mark where it intersects with each other is in the centre, which it is. And this line is it once again on the diagonal. And now I'm going to trim up this side and along that side. So trim up there and trim along there. And now I've got a perfect 3.5 inch square. Have I? She says. Just going to double check that. Just going to turn that round again because I'm not happy. I don't think I've cut that side properly. It's always check, 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 check. 3.5 inches. Yeah. It's just my eyes. I'm just going to, yeah, pop it onto there. There's just a slither. It was just a tiny little slither that it was out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the block. I have sewn ahead here. We're going to make 4 of these in total, these blocks, and we're going to lay them out with our corner squares, so you'll start to see the block coming together. I will just move that down a little bit further so you can see. So what I've done is I've fussy cut that centre block here, and there's the other one, and we've got this one. Oops, I want the black going there. And then I need to find my other square which I have cut. So I've got one there, and the last one is that the right one? Is there? No, I don't think that is the right one. I'm just going to check. Thought I'd sorted them all out before. Let me just have a look. There should be another one like that. That's it there. It was in the wrong place, the wrong pile. Okay. So now I've got, can you see? We've got centre squares, which are 4 3.5 inch squares for your 9 inch block here. Sorry, your corner squares, and then this is your centre block, which is 3.5 inch squares. If you are doing the 12 inch block, these would be 4.5 inch squares, and this one in the centre. So what you're going to do is you're going to, can you see how I've got the black echoing here? The 2 red ones. Oh, that one looks wrong. No, it isn't. It is right. It's right. So the red ones are here, and the black's in the centre. I think that is wrong actually when I've looked. That doesn't look right, but it is right, the same as the others. No, it's not. That isn't right. I need to unpick that one. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to sew this one onto here, this one onto here, this one onto here, and you'll have your finished block. I'm going to change those around. I always do this. I'm terrible because I've got this just in the wrong place. The black should have been opposite the cream. It's just the way I've flipped it together. So this is the block here. You're going to make this, and this is a 9 inch block. Let me have a look at your photographs, and I will post another photograph of this finished in a second, and I'll speak to you soon. Until next week, thank you. Bye bye.